I was thinking this week about how I'm always behind the curve a lot of times. Even though I feel like I'm really attached to social media and Facebook, and I have a hard time being separated from my phone. Ed Merritt has my phone right now, and I feel kind of like I'm lost because I don't have it with me. I still feel like I'm a lot of times behind the curve. I was at Real People the other night, and I didn't even know until I got to Real People because I'd been so busy on Friday what had happened in Paris. And so one of those times when I was really behind the curve was when this book, The Hunger Games, this book series, The Hunger Games, came out. Any of you read The Hunger Games? Yeah, well, it was a huge phenomenon in the theological world. And everybody started reading The Hunger Games, and somebody just kind of told me the gist of what it was, and I was just like, yeah, that doesn't even sound interesting to me. You can't get anything theological out of that. And then the next thing you know, everybody is reading The Hunger Games. All the pastors are preaching sermons about The Hunger Games. They're making movies about The Hunger Games. And I couldn't preach about The Hunger Games because I hadn't read them. So I thought the next time something comes up, I'm going to be on the bandwagon first. I'm going to be ready to preach about it. And so I heard on Good Morning America that the next greatest book that was out there was 50 Shades of Grey. And I thought, wow, I'll get that book and I'll read it and I'll be ahead of the curve and I'll preach on 50 Shades of Grey. No. Yeah, I'm a little lost. If you can tell, I'm a little lost some days. But this week, I feel like I've crossed over that threshold and I'm on the bandwagon. Because you see, this week, this tiny little red cup has been causing all kinds of stuff to happen this week. I flipped on my Facebook when I got here on Tuesday morning, I think it was, and there was actually it started when we were at the conference. Remember me saying to you there's some sort of Starbucks controversy going on right now? And I kind of saw all this stuff, and my Facebook page started to get littered with Keep Christ in Christmas, posts that they put on there. And then I saw this thing more prominently on Tuesday morning because it was a video of a man who had this cup in his hand. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to click on the video so that I can not be behind the curve on this one. I clicked on the video, and the premise of the video was that the man had gone into Starbucks so upset that it doesn't have snowflakes, doesn't have Christmas trees on the cup this year. So that's Starbucks' subliminal way of telling us they don't like Jesus. That was his point. Hear me now. I don't think Jesus gives a rat's patootie about this cup. Do you? Beyond that, do you really think that Jesus really cares about Christ in Christmas since he didn't really know what Christmas was before he died and was resurrected? He was a Jew, he would have celebrated Hanukkah. So Christmas is our thing where we celebrate Christ, but I really don't know that Christ is too oriented at Christmas. I'm going to have to study about that more. I don't normally bring up stuff like this in worship, but I watched that video, and the man went in. See, I'm getting so upset about it, I got to take my coat off. I'm so hot. The man went into the Starbucks that he was at, and they don't let us say Merry Christmas. They don't let their employees say Merry Christmas, and so I had them say my name was Merry Christmas, that they had to write it on the cup. So when they called for my cup when it was done, they had to say Merry Christmas to me to come get it. Then he reached in behind his back and he said, and look what else I did. I took this in and they didn't even know that I had it. And he had a gun. He felt so powerful because he had that gun and he had hidden it because he disagreed with what Starbucks has to say about their cups. And for me, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Because it is that radical, on the fringes kind of thinking that eventually gets us to an attack in Paris, France. I know it may not seem like Starbucks cup controversy has anything to do with what's going on in Paris, but I'm telling you that it does. Because it is these cup controversies, these kinds of coffee cup controversies that we wrap ourselves around the axles about, that begins to build that negativity, begins to build that animosity and that spite, that at some point somebody pulls out a gun. Now I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care if you own a gun. I really don't. I don't care if you own a gun. You can own a gun, I just don't want you to bring it in here. I just don't want you to use it. Your right is to have a gun, but when we are so angry as a society, when we are so wrapped around the axle that something as ridiculous as a cup can cause us to start thinking about ways that we can show our power to other people, we have to start to think about, what are we doing? What are we doing in our society that something that can be crushed and crumbled has so much power over us that it makes us so angry? I think that that cup is just symptomatic of all the ways that we in our own lives wrap ourselves around these tiny little things that don't matter to Christ. You know, think about the times when you're so worked up, I'm so worked up about something, and it doesn't have anything to do with the gospel of Jesus Christ that says, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, heal the sick, let the prisoners know release, uplift those who are downtrodden. Think about all those times in our lives when we create our own coffee cup controversy to get ourselves all worked up about, and then the next thing you know, we're trying to exert our power over other people. In our society, we've watched this over and over and over again. Dr. Pepper printed on its cans several years ago the original Pledge of Allegiance. And the words "under God," I don't know whether you know this or not, the words "under God" did not go into our Pledge of Allegiance until the 1950s, right? But the Christians came out to say, boycott Dr. Pepper because they don't have "under God" on their cans. Again, do you think that Christ cares about whether or not the words "under God" are on a pop can? Rachel Ray wore a scarf when she was doing a commercial for Dunkin' Donuts a few years ago. The scarf was white, and it had a black pattern on the inside of it, and when it was tied around her neck, it looked like the kiafa that the Arab men wear. And so what did the Christians do? Boycott Dunkin' Donuts, boycott Rachel Ray. You think Christ cares about a scarf? Here's my personal favorite. You think Christ really cares that there's this movement to keep God in our schools? Who has the power to take God out of our schools? If God is all-powerful, isn't God anywhere that God wants to be, no matter who says that God isn't there? God is always where God needs to be. But we wrap ourselves around these controversies. We find these things in our world to then start throwing up on our Facebook page and tell people that we're so upset about all of this stuff, all of this persecution. Can I just say to you that the Christians in the United States of America are not persecuted? We don't have to hide like the people in the Middle East do, or the people in Nepal do who are Christians, or the people in Africa do. We don't have to hide to worship our God. So there is no way that we're persecuted. We've taken that, we've wrapped ourselves around that coffee cup controversy, and we have allowed ourselves not to focus on what Jesus needs, wants for us to be doing in this world. I was thinking about, what would Jesus say about Starbucks? Here's the questions that Jesus would ask about Starbucks. Are they giving their employees a just wage? For all intents and purposes, it looks like they're doing pretty good in the wage department. Are they harvesting their coffee in such a way that it does not harm the world? They had a pledge that by 2015, they would be completely green in the production of their coffee. I think Jesus would say, Is that environment where the people are a place where they are built up? Doesn't matter what their coffee cup looks like. See, we have to challenge ourselves to let go of that kind of stuff. We have to challenge ourselves to let go of those things that we've wrapped ourselves up in so much that it can take our focus away from the places that we need to focus. Think about when you don't get your way. How often do you talk about that to people when you don't get your way? I'm a verbal processor. If you all don't know that by now, I'm a verbal processor. I talk a lot. And when I'm upset about or angry about something, I just want to talk about it all the time, talk about it all the time, talk about it all the time. But what that does is it really takes my focus off of being truly there and present with the real live presence of Christ that needs me to go and change this world. Think about all those times we get ourselves all bent out of shape about things that are going on in the world. Oh, Kate Middleton wore this kind of dress and didn't she look bad? Do you think Jesus cares about what Kate Middleton wears? Do you think that Jesus cares about what Kim Kardashian is wearing? I think Jesus cares about whether or not Kim Kardashian is living her life as a good person in this world. But you see, we want to flip it all up on Facebook and we want to tell everybody how mad we are that somebody's trying to tell me I can't say Merry Christmas. Let me say this. That which you do not already have cannot be taken away from you. Say that again. That which you do not already have cannot be taken away from you. So I would suggest that if you believe that Merry Christmas can be taken from your language, that you don't have Christ. That you don't have a heart of Merry Christmas. Because if you truly had a heart of Merry Christmas, there is nothing in the world through the power of Jesus Christ that can take that away from you. If you truly had Christ in your heart, then nothing in this world can take it away from you. For God's sake, just say Merry Christmas. Even if they say, don't say it, just say Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy holidays. It doesn't matter. Because that's an axle thing that we wrap ourselves around. So I'm going to challenge myself this week. I'm going to challenge everybody here to go home this week and think about all of the little coffee cup controversies that seem to be so important, so overwhelming in your life that you're willing to buy into them to the point that you don't pay attention to what Jesus is actually saying. I want all of you to go out and buy a cup from Starbucks and say, look, this does not represent Jesus Christ to me. Because you, me, we're the representation of Jesus Christ in this world. Not a cup, not a Christmas tree, not a pew, not a hymn. We are the representations of Christ in this world. And if we don't start paying attention to that, it doesn't matter what kind of cups that Starbucks is going to put out. Because the world is not going to be able to survive that. We have to take seriously in our lives that we spend way too much time focusing on that which is not what Jesus needs for us to focus on. Amen.